experts on BPD, and when my knowledge of BPD is so fragmentary and so elementary. But I thought I might perhaps share something with you that I think can be applied to whatever school one belongs to and whatever methodology one uses for treating mental illness. Back many years ago, when I worked in the state hospital, I was assigned a chronic female building. And I met one of the patients there, a middle-aged woman who had been in the state hospital for 3 years. Now, she had been hospitalized several times in community hospitals for depression, and she had a refractory depression which did not yield to medications or to several courses of electroshock. When she came into the office, I looked at her and I said, "Oh my God, she has no thyroid." The typical picture of myxedema. And I got her chart from the community hospital. She had been in 3 community hospitals. No one did a thyroid level. This woman was severely depressed for good reason. And all the therapy in the world could not help her because she was missing a basic element in her metabolism. And I began to think, is it possible that I overlook sometimes something so elementary, if not thyroid, perhaps something else? And eventually I came to realize something that we all know, that a human being is a composite creature. We have a body, a physical body that we came into the world with, but there is something else within us other than the physical body. Now, incidentally, when I left the position left the pulpit to become a physician instead of a rabbi, I decided that I would not preach religion anymore, right? And the doctors would not preach medicine. The doctors would not preach religion, and I would not. Okay. So we each have our field. But there is something more to life than intelligence. I wanted to read something from Albert Einstein. Incidentally, he was an agnostic, and he said, "To inquire after the meaning or object of one's own existence of creation has always seemed to be observed from an objective point of view. And yet, everybody has certain ideals which determine the direction of his endeavors and his judgments. In this sense, I have never looked upon ease and happiness as ends in themselves. Such an ethical basis I call more proper for a herd of swine. The ideals which have lighted me on my way have been truth, goodness, and beauty. The ordinary objects of human endeavor, property, outward success, luxury, have always seemed to me to be contemptible." And what Einstein is saying is that there is something in addition to what people consider as the ingredients for happiness. Right? Now, he was not a religious person, but he certainly was a very spiritual person. Now, what is a spiritual person? Now, I had to deal with alcoholism and addiction for many years, and the basis of recovery is spirituality. And I realized that what distinguishes a human being from other forms of life is not only our intelligence. Now, science would have us believe, no, Einstein was very rough in calling society a herd of swine, right? Science has been a little more kind and called us Homo sapiens, right? At least it's not swine, it's a gorilla, right? But an intellectual gorilla, an intellectual baboon is not the goal of life. When Nancy Reagan, the First Lady, tried to launch a campaign to prevent drug addiction, she had a slogan, just say no to drugs. And when they interviewed a young woman of 14, what do you think about this, just say no to drugs? This 14-year-old said, why? What else is there? Now, we have spent in the United States billions and billions of dollars to combat drug addiction. Total failure. And we will never succeed in overcoming drug addiction until we can answer this young woman's question, what else is there? Right? And we have to give them some other meaning of life other than just pleasure. So what else is there? Right? It's developing that part of us which is not animal. In other words, what really distinguishes a human being from an animal? The fact that we can make choices which an animal cannot do. Animals are impulse-ridden. Animals cannot deny themselves something which their body desires. We have a choice. And that's the pride of human being. Animals have no concept of what we call chesed. Right? To be able to give of oneself and sacrifice of oneself for the benefit of another person. Animals can't do that, except parents of their young. Right? Animals have no concept of what their purpose of existence is. Animals have no concept of their history. Animals have no concept of delaying gratification. Animals have no concept of forgiveness. These are all human traits. And if we had the time, we could go down the whole list of human traits that are unique to human beings that animals do not have. And I would like to take all of these human traits, whether it's chesed or the ability to make a choice or sacrifice, whatever, and put them together. I say the sum total of unique human beings, of unique traits, that is what I call the spirit. I don't think anybody can deny that human beings have a spirit. This is not a religious concept. I didn't talk at all about religion. And even if one does not have any religious conviction, the fact that we are all capable of being spiritual by exercising the unique human traits. Now, Einstein says truth, beauty, and goodness. Again, these are not animalistic traits. These are human traits. And I believe that if we can develop within ourselves as parents, as a community, not to be a herd of swine looking for pleasure, not to be dominated by the Freud's id, but to have some sort of higher goal, even if it is not religious, then we will have some answer to the young woman's question, what else is there? And without that, the impulse to go for pleasure, whether that pleasure is alcohol and drugs or gambling or sex or whatever, is going to dominate. So, this I think is valid for whatever school of psychology one has. Right? That there has to be some sort of meaning to life to be able to tolerate, right? To be able to tolerate the vicissitudes and hardships of life. And I'm sure that many of you are familiar with Viktor Frankl, right? The suffering that he went through, right? And the fact that he found some meaning in life. Yesterday someone asked me, to tell a little bit about my personal career. Okay? Now, I tried to do so, and it ended up in 82 books. Right? 5 of them were written in combination and collaboration with the greatest psychologist America has ever produced. His name was Charles Schulz. And he was a cartoonist who wrote the Peanuts cartoon. Right? He never had an inkling of psychology, but he had an intuitive awareness. And I wrote 4 books with him. Right? And I just mentioned today to Barry that Lucy is a borderline. And we have to go through the cartoons to see where she is a borderline. You know? I mean, she has such wonderful sayings like, I love humanity. It's people that I can't stand. And another Schultz beautiful insight, brothers and sisters should never be in the same family. Yeah, we would have to agree with the wisdom of that. Yeah. So I became aware of the enormous insights that Schultz had. And then I wrote a book, because I was also very interested in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and addiction. And so I wrote a book about how the 12 steps would apply to Snoopy and Charlie Brown. Right. When I had my first patient who was an alcoholic, I knew nothing about alcoholism. So I went to an AA meeting in 1961. Right? And since then I've been going regularly. Now, I do not have, as far as I know, any addiction except to writing books. But I found the principles of the 12 steps so wonderfully applicable to every walk of life. And I say that if the author of the 12 steps, Bill Wilson, if he were alive today, I would sue him for plagiarism. Because he took all of the works of the Hebrew Jewish works of Musa and he put them into the program. So I became aware, and I don't know how this would work out with borderline, but I believe that the 12 steps are a gift of God to mankind, right? And I have just recently written another book about teshuva through recovery, right? And I think that what people in recovery have found how to deal with, ultimately there are only two ways of dealing with any stress in life, with any challenge. Right? You either cope with it or escape from it. There is no third option. Right? And addiction is one of the ways, destructive ways of escaping. And so when I came to the 12-step program, I found that this is a program for people to improve their personalities. And how to help get rid of our character defects, which are innate within all of us. And so when people ask me, how long do I have to keep going to AA meetings? And I said, the purpose of these meetings are to help you overcome your character defects. When you no longer have any character defects, you don't need any meetings. But by that time you'll be dead, so there's no problem. Every human being has character defects, right? It's part of our lives. But the wonderful thing about being humans, right? And Oprah mentioned this before, to be a mensch. To be a mensch is more than to be an intellectual gorilla that science tells us we are as Homo sapiens. Right? So I know it's difficult to talk about spirituality to our clients, although I don't know why. We talk to them about everything else. Right? We ask them about the most intimate facets of their lives, right? And no problem with that. But how often do we ask them, what have you done about your spirit? What have you done about your spirituality? Now this is not asking them about religion, right? But this is about spirituality. but we don't ask them that. Right? And if we don't ask them that, we are overlooking something, just like doctors in the community hospitals overlook this woman's thyroid deficiency. I have coined a term called SDS, Spirituality Deficiency Syndrome. And I believe that unless we alert people to that, now, we don't have to tell them how to become spiritual, that's not my business, but just to make them aware, right? That part of their life is a spirit, and that they have to give nutrition to the spirit just like they have to do to the body. And if a person is deficient in iron, right, he will not recover from his iron deficiency until you give him iron. You can give him every vitamin in the world. You can give him every mineral in the world, and he will remain ill until you give him the thing that he is missing. And I think that we have to have alert people that there is a significant element in their life that they have to develop. Right? That doesn't mean they have to become religious. But they have to recognize that they are more than intellectual animals. A person can be multiply degreed and still be a chazer, right? A herd of swine. Prior to World War II, the most advanced intellectual country in the world was Germany. They were not the finest people in the world. And so I think that we have a responsibility to alert our people, our clients, our friends, our community, that there is an element of spirituality that is an important part of our essence, and that without giving the nutrition to the spirituality and practicing all the kinds of things, like Einstein said, truth, beauty, and goodness, that's fine. Right? And then if we don't have those, what we'll end up being is either, like Einstein says, a herd of swine, or more complimentary, a Homo sapiens. Right? And I think we can do better than that. Right? Now, with the basis of that, if we can help people become a mensch, we can then deal with whatever problems they have. But if we don't help them become a mensch, right, it's like giving shock treatment to a woman who is devoid of thyroid. It's not going to help. Right? So this is not the function of the clergy. It's the function of everyone, including therapists, to help people become aware that they should be mentioned, and not the pure id that we were born. Thank you for listening. I wish you a great deal of hatzlacha in everything that you do. Kol tov להתראות.